Hey guys, welcome to Pop Culture Curiosities, where Gabe and I get together and tell each other stories from pop culture that interest us and usually also share our on-set experiences working as extras and stand-ins and all the things. How are you, Gabe?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Because it's spooky season, so I was trying to find a couple of stories that are spooky season relevant.
Yeah.
I got a couple more planned, but this one is the old Satanic Panic, the scare that swept a nation, which was actually not nearly as scary as it sounds, but it was for some people. They didn't need to be as scared as they were, but they went, you know what? What if we turned it up to like a 15?
We're going to have so much fun in the 80s.
Yeah, in the 80s, basically, to just jump right into it, we're talking about specifically Satanic Panic in the 80s as it related to rock music, the scary heavy metal music. And there's other, obviously, pieces of media that have been pulled in over the years to the Satanic Panic thing, because let's be real, it's still going on. I just saw somebody say that Billie Eilish had sold her soul to Satan like 2 weeks ago. Like, it's... Some people just never give up the bid.
Yeah, I think I remember reading somewhere where people are like, oh, the people who worship Satan, and people who worship Satan are like, that's not what we worship at all, you guys.
No, and also like... the Satanic Temple does not worship Satan at all. I'm sure there are people who do worship Satan, but the Satanic Temple is called the Satanic Temple just to troll Christians who get scared of Satan. So they're basically just fancy atheists, and we appreciate that.
We love the trolls that are able to like, you know, be like, haha, we're scaring you and you can't sue us or Karen us, you know.
Yeah, and yeah, so that's a thing. So rock music has basically been scaring conservatives since its conception. And it's worth noting that rock music comes from blues music and is all created by and should be attributed to the black community. And back when it first came out, people were just straight up openly racist and you know conservative. Like, people were, you know, wary of this counterculture music.
Oh gosh.
There was also just like, you know, there's a lot of documented cases of studios being afraid that, like, white studio execs and producers being afraid that black artists were basically gaining too much money and power, and so they put together acts like Elvis, who basically stole black music and then got super rich and famous off of it. So like that's a whole other story for another time. But, you know, ever since rock music was conceptualized, conservatives were coming up with some reason that was bullshit to be, like, wary of it. And whether it was, even after it was stolen and hijacked by white people, they still kept doing it. In this, yeah, in this, to say the least, it was quite rude.
Do we want to take the TARDIS back real quick?
Or? Oh shoot, I forgot. Sorry. Let's just go back to the general 80s and cruise.
Yeah, cruising around the 80s. We can... Yay! Oh,
I don't trust it. I'm gonna put it back to its original setting. Just
okay, we're back to the 80s.
One time Spencer was like, you guys know that I love how the lights were just vibing while you guys were talking. I'm like, yeah, I couldn't turn it off. In the 70s and 80s, there was one other thing. Oh, hang on. Sorry. There was one note that I said I'm going to put in before we get into the 70s and 80s that I forgot to put in. There was a blues musician a black artist in the 30s who was the big rumor was that he sold his soul to the devil to be better at playing guitar or whatever. And it's just like, so even back in the 30s, like, you know, blues music, which would become rock music, was already being, it starts to autofill. Robert Johnson. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. People say he sold his soul literally to Satan. Which would be a weird reason to sell your soul to Satan for the first of all, right? Just to be better at guitar?
Yeah.
I think Satan's giving people bad deals. I want a little bit more for my soul.
Or just have him on speed dial. What is going on here? Oh, because it was easy? Because humans are foolish? I don't know. Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
It just reminds me of the Disney Channel movie H.E. Double Hockey Sticks, where Will Friedle he's a demon, and he manages to get a hockey player to sell his soul to him just to win the hockey game. And I'm always just like, for the hockey game?
Yeah, it's people need to have bigger aspirations to when selling their souls.
Ask not what Satan can do for what you can do for Satan. Ask what Satan can do for
like
you.
You're giving. Well, I just am waiting for the movie that will be filmed overseas and will follow the interim agreements where there's like a ginger that's able to like get away with it because we have no souls. Like, but where's that movie?
So, so Satan's been giving people bad deals for years. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. People have been trying to associate blues music, rock music with like something bad or even satanic for years. Now, in the 70s and 80s, there were fringe groups that went on to inspire mainstream Christian culture. And obviously, we know not all Christians believe this, but it was very big in the 70s and 80s. And even to this day, even when I was growing up in the church, there was a big thing against giving your kids grief over in the 80s, it was rock music. Now it's just more like heavy metal music.
Yeah.
As music, it's whatever mainstream music there is. There's always like a thing. Like, I remember when I was in youth group as a kid, as a teenager, our breakout leaders were supposed to be giving us the whole spiel about how like pop music, mainstream music is, not as good for you. They wouldn't come right out and say that we shouldn't listen to it because they knew we weren't going to do that, but they were like, it's better if you listen to Christian music. But our breakout leader, who shall remain nameless, she was amazing. And she was like, well, my favorite song is Wobble. You know the song Wobble? Wobble,
yeah.
Baby, wobble, baby, wobble. So we're in the front room where there's like the little coffee shop because we were non-denominational evangelical church, which means we're Baptist, but we have coffee in the front lobby.
Oh, yeah.
We're in the front lobby coffee area and she's playing Wobble and she's teaching us how to wobble. And so our main worship leader, like the music director, was a very nice guy. He was very wholesome. He wore sweater vests. Aww. He didn't listen to a lot of mainstream music. He pops his head around the corner and goes, what are you guys listening to? And I've never seen anybody dive for their phone faster. She's like, nothing, we're not listening to anything. Very funny, I'll never forget it. I think about it every time I hear Wobble.
Aww.
Core memory. But in the 80s, the big thing was like rock music specifically. That it was like evil and scary, and people were just trying to like scare parents into giving their kids shit, and like they would do like the whole record burning thing. Like my dad has stories about like his parents being like, have you heard about this? Like, they'd have a big bonfire and everybody throws their evil rock records into it.
While the rock people are just like counting their money from the
My dad has pointed out that he and his friends would just go and buy the records again. So really, they just were doing the music industry a big favor.
Well, or that's when you're just like, oh, here, you shouldn't have to waste your time burning these. I'll burn them for you. You go and have a nice little shindig at your house and just steal the records.
I don't remember who it was. It was one very prominent rock star, and it's escaping me which one it is. He said famously, like, if you hate my music, go out and buy 10 copies and then burn them.
That's so smart.
He was like, It's not hurt. It's not hurt. This is like when the conservatives were mad that Bud Light dared to do
just gonna say
business with a trans woman, and then they're like, "I'm gonna shoot all my Bud Light," and it's like, yes, I'm sure that's very harmful to Bud Light as a company.
As you're advertising for them. And I remember someone was just like, I'm gonna use this useless can with Bud Light and like use it for this video, and I'm like, this doesn't have the impact that you think it does.
No, and then Bud Light totally had the grounds to just like stand by Dylan, the trans woman, Dylan Mulvaney, who they were working with, and they just completely left her out to dry and were like, "We are sorry that we did that." I'm like, no. Now everybody's mad at you. The leftists are mad at you for the legitimate reason of selling out a trans woman, and the right wing is mad at you because you worked with a trans woman. Good luck. No one wants your beer anymore.
Yeah. Well, as we're like freely advertising it.
Don't buy Bud Light.
Yeah,
it's
just
shitty
don't buy
beer anyway.
I don't like beer in general.
I don't either, but Bud Light.
Yeah, and I love when the conservatives are like, "Oh, it tasted bad anyway."
It did taste bad anyway. They're right,
like...
but they're like, they weren't going to say it until they did something that was mildly progressive.
Oh gosh, yeah. I'm just imagining someone being like, "Oh, I can use this to my advantage," and they're just like, "Oh, look at this delicious product that I'm," and it's just like, "Oh, I can just see some company using that as a marketing strategy, just like, "Oh, we're not really selling that stuff. Wait a second, I have an idea." Controversy.
What was it? John Mulaney had such a beautiful way of putting it. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of, "Bud Light, what happens when piss-soaked wet socks are wrung out into a glass?"
Oh. Jeez.
He doesn't mince words.
Yeah.
True poetry.
Oh gosh. Well, luckily I'm not going to buy any of it. I'm not going to give them my funds. I'm just going to criticize them on the internet.
Yeah. as is our human American right.
Back to the 80s Satanic Panic.
So I made a note that Christians would even have a problem with Christian rock, which I find very funny. Because they're like, the music is still derived from Satan. And meanwhile, like, Reliant K is over here being like, but we're singing about God. And they're like, it doesn't count.
We love Jesus. Yes, we do.
They're not even...
Go away.
Yeah. Christian, I made a short recently at the time of recording this where I was reading from the Book of Useless Information, and one of it was like all about heavy metal. And one of the types of heavy metal that was listed was Christian.
Oh, I saw
Christian
that, yeah.
metal, but it was like, instead of singing about Satan, they sing about God. I'm like, yes, because we know all heavy metal songs are about Satan. Every single one of them.
I unfortunately don't listen to heavy metal, so I'm just
They're
like,
not.
I know they don't.
They're
but...
not. I'm like, some of them, every once in a while you get one about Satan, but that's mainly just a protest thing.
It's
kind of like, you guys think we do this, so we're gonna do it anyway. Might as well. It pisses off the conservatives.
Oh no, it's our most popular song. Everyone asked us to sing that.
Yeah. So there were record burnings, which just drove up sales of records. This was a very big deal at the time. And all of this has continued in different forms since then. You know, in the 90s, people were mad at Pokemon, if you've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. There was like some, I believe it was a religious group that made their own version, but it was just animal fighting. And I'm sitting here and I'm just like, what? I'm like,
good job, guys.
Like, I love Pokemon, but I'm also like, it's not real though. And I've played Pokemon in my youth, and I have never had the urge to be like, what if we put a bird and a dog together to see
validating all the people that are like Pokemon, like all the PETA members that are like, Pokemon is just animal fighting, and all these years we're just like, but they're not real, and like they're just casting like magic stuff on each other. And meanwhile, the Christians are just like, let's do dog fighting rings.
And let's not forget the one famous football dog fighter who will not be named that I think is playing football again.
He's playing football again?
I heard that he's playing football again. And it's like, and I'm just looking at the conservatives and PETA and being like, he literally like did the thing in real life.
That was here, wasn't it? Georgia's finest.
I hope not. You're probably right, but yeah, people have forgiven that guy. But goodness forbid you play Pokemons.
Yeah. So that was a big
I I can add nothing to Satanic Panic, but I will be very passionate about Pokemon.
Yeah, he was a Georgia resident, at least. We're so proud. We're not. We're not proud.
We're very much not.
Stop saying pit bulls are dangerous. People like Michael Vick make people think that pit bulls are dangerous because they were bred to be fighting dogs, but they're the sweetest dogs.
They are so cute.
They're not even that big. People act like they're these like big foreboding dogs. They're just like these little like short. They're short kings. They're just like, hey guys.
They're just so happy to see you.
They're always so happy.
I think I remember reading something that it was German Shepherds, which have the most attacks on people, I think.
Yeah, and like Ellis is a shepherd retriever, and like, which,
and Ellis is really good. You know, the only reason Ellis would get mad at you is if you like steal his food.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's very rambunctious, but he would never hurt anybody. It's just we're laughing because my dog, my nearly 12-year-old shepherd retriever mix, he's very gentle, but he's very excitable. Every time anybody comes over to the house, like earlier today, you came over and I'm like, sorry, Gabe, sorry, Gabe, sorry, Gabe, sorry, Gabe.
It's fine.
Pulling the dog away. He's just like, I want to be your best friend forever. I'm going to crush you.
My one true fan who's excited. When I'm famous, Ellis will be the first one I thank when I get the award. The streamy award. I don't know.
So yeah, so in the... How did we get on the topic? Pokemon.
Yeah,
Pokemon. So Pokemon, there's a whole like pastor, there's a sermon that I think Curtis Connor and Jarvis Johnson reacted to on live. It's really funny. It's a sermon from the late 90s, early 2000s where this guy is like trying to tell you that like Satan has taken control of Pokemon. What is the quote? He's like, you know, I know a lot of... It's like from Arkansas. This guy's like, you know, I know a lot of people really love Pokemon. A lot of kids love Pokemon. But you know who also loves Pokemon? The devil. And I was just like... I told Spencer that if we ever did another Satan Claus, that I wanted us to, at some point, to just be playing with Pokemon cards in the background.
I have Pokemon cards.
I have a couple too. Somebody gave me some at con. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought that you know who else loves Pokemon? Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to make an argument that like the shape of Pikachu's tail was like some satanic thing, and it's like, it's a lightning bolt.
It's lightning is brought on by Satan.
Every time lightning strikes this man, it's like, good lord, it's the devil.
Quick, someone else, quick, get away from me, and you attract the lightning because I am clearly to be saved from Satan.
Oh my god. So it was Pokemon, and even like I remember in the 90s and early 2000s, which we did not do because we thought these people were ridiculous, because they were. People used to tell my parents to like throw out all of our like Disney VHSs because Disney was like secretly a satanic cult or something. I don't know.
I would love to see those people go up against Disney. If you think Disney is the devil, I support you in trying to fight that battle. I will be on the sidelines away from all that. But, you know, Disney, you know, Ron DeSantis is fighting Disney and is losing. So
it's like, oh, all the bad people are fighting each other. Yay!
Just sitting there with the popcorn. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, people were mad at like, I don't know, Beauty and the Beast because the Beast has a curse put on him and like curses are evil. And I'm just like, come on, you guys.
That one book by that one person, that one turf that we don't talk about.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one.
I have a friend who in high school was like, hey, don't mention that book around my dad. He hates that book. And just hearing about how people hate book because spells and magic and the devil. And I'm just like...
So, yeah, in the 2000s, it was very much Harry Potter was...
Yeah.
Just in case you don't know what we're talking about. Sorry, Gabe tried to censor it.
It's all good. I'm just like, I don't want to be like, because we don't support J.K. Rowling.
We don't support J.K. Rowling. Thankfully, I have, even before we knew J.K. Rowling was terrible, all my books were bought secondhand. So I'm like, yay, I've never given her money. Yay! I can dissect and discuss the problems with her books without giving her any money.
Yep.
But in the 2000s, before all of that, Harry Potter was really important to me growing up, which my dad was kind of wary about, but then he was like, yeah, it's fine. And he doesn't care anymore. But like, when I was in high school, no joke, this sounds like a joke, but it's not. I had a youth group leader, a different one from the Wobble,
Oh.
different breakout leader, who told me that that because I had recently been diagnosed with anxiety and night terrors, and that's been a whole thing most of my life. She told me that was all because I was reading Harry Potter and high fantasy, because I was letting Satan into my life, and therefore demons were coming into my life through the back door that I had left open with Harry Potter. I wore a time turner to church the next week just to make her mad.
Yay. Oh, it's all, after hearing some of the stories about religion, it just goes back to like at my synagogue, they didn't like my mom because she converted. And so any way I could like take a dig at like, oh, I ate a piece of bacon the other day. Like I'm just jab.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, all I thought about was the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, where she's like, and yes, there's shrimp in the egg rolls. And then there's just turmoil.
Oh gosh. I remember when they were sitting in synagogue and I remember hearing the prayer and I just kind of like had a flashback, like this really funny conversation is happening. And I'm just like flashing back and I'm just like, I used to be there from 9:45 to 1. Sorry, Dad, that you're hearing that, because my dad watches these and I'm just like, sorry, Dad. But yeah, he knew I didn't want to be there. My paternal grandma would be like, let's go get some Pizza Hut. And I would come back to the house with like red thighs because I would have it on my lap. But I did not care because I got to leave synagogue early.
No.
And I'm just like, but anyway, but yeah. So I'm just like, anytime you can take a jab at at that, I'm like fully supported. Like someone says that you're the thing, like this one thing you're doing is the reason why you have problems. It's just like,
yeah, the mental health is just because you're not praying hard enough was kind of a current theme. Yeah, that was a thing.
Oh, there's one thing that I'm not going to repeat that someone said.
Well, and it's one of those things where, like, I'm sure there's a lot of, we have Christians that watch this show and they don't believe any of that weird stuff. So, like, we're not talking about you.
Yeah, it's like...
We're talking about the fringe groups that seem to become less fringe every year. But, it's not all...
Yeah, not
all Christians.
Not all Christians, not all Jews, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's like if you're not infringing on anyone else's rights with your religion, you're fine.
Yeah.
But if you start or I remember reading this meme where it's like, it's perfectly fine to say like, hey, my kid shouldn't read this book. It's a problem when you said, oh, I don't want my kid to read this, so no kid should read this.
And that's what we're getting into today. That's the central fight of Satanic Panic in the 80s. So do you know what backmasking is?
No.
So backmasking is the idea of artists hiding like secret subliminal messages in their music so that when you play it backwards, you can hear it. This was a really big thing in the 80s. My dad talks about this. Like people would like run their records backwards and be like, well, what do you hear? Because like it's all like gibberish because it's just backwards singing. But some people swore that they heard subliminal messages, and they swore that, like, even if you were hearing it backwards and, like, decode it, your brain was able to, like, flip it around and hear it, and you were being brainwashed by the Satanists in Hollywood. And it was, like, a big thing. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I can't talk about it because it's a movie, but anyway.
Yeah, so... Yeah, it's kind of the precursor to, like, all of Hollywood is the Illuminati kind of thing, where it's just like, it's all a big cult. They're trying to indoctrinate your children.
Oh, gosh. I remember hearing about the Illuminati when I was in high school and just being like, what is happening?
Yeah, basically that's just kind of repackaging of, in my opinion, the same thought process of, like, everybody's trying to indoctrinate your kids into Satanism.
And meanwhile, the Satanists are like, LOL, JK, that's not what we do here.
So sorry, I lost my place of my notes. The thing with backmasking is that, of course, you can't really hear what's supposedly said because it's just nonsense. But the thing is, the guy would always get up and be like, and you can hear that they say this, and then they say it. And then, of course, your brain is listening for it. So then everybody else is like, I do hear that. Everybody has a southern accent.
I knew it. Or I think it's called the McGurk effect or something, where it's like an auditory and...
Your brain is trained to pick up on patterns and things. So if your brain is primed to be listening for something, it will do its damnedest to find it.
Yeah, I think they're utilizing science. Oh no, run away. I'm just kidding.
One of the most famous examples was Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. If you know that song, they swore that backwards it said, "My sweet Satan." And this got big. Like, people were pissed about this. Like, national news was covering this about, like, backmasking. Are people trying to, like, brainwash you? Like, it got so bad that California proposed a bill to label backmasked songs to be like this, like a warning label, like this has backmasking in it. That didn't pass, but they tried.
Oh my, I wouldn't be surprised if someone's just like, play it backwards. You might hear something just to like sell more records, but I'm just like.
Eventually people just started doing that to meme people that were truly scared about it. Like, there's a ton of backmask songs because it was in response to people accusing them of backmasking songs. So they would just like put in stuff just to like mess with people, which is kind of funny.
Yep.
I'm going to put it, trigger warning. This is a brief note, but it's an important part of like the culture that led to what ended up happening was a big congressional hearing. So Spencer will put a timestamp of whenever that stops. But teen suicide was on the rise in the 80s too, and there's a bunch of factors that probably led into that. For example, uptick of drugs, divorces, increased availability of guns. All of that stuff was happening in the 80s. So like, people have done studies and there's a lot of very probable reasons why that was happening. But no, we don't fix any of the actual problems. We just go to the music and we say it's the rock music's fault.
It's like saying video games make kids violent.
Exactly. It's just that is, again, in my mind, just a repackaged argument of like rock music makes you violent, which is what they were accusing people of. They were saying the rock music is making kids violent. Basically, it was a correlation does not equal causation, because it was like, it just so happens that like heavy metal music is the main demographic is like young white guys, young white male teens, or whatever their label at the time was. Male identifying white teenagers. And that happened to also be the group of people where suicide was on the uptick. So they said that must mean that one causes the other, when in actuality, there's no actual causation, right? So that was a big thing. And I also put in my notes to point out, as a metalhead myself, this still gets said to this day that like heavy metal music is like violent and evil, and the heavy metal community is so wholesome.
Oh.
Everybody's so nice. Spencer and I went to a Monuments concert, and we met the sweetest couple and hung out with them, and like everybody's super chill, and like it's sort of like how like the goth community has a reputation for being like scary, but then they all love to crochet.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, they're like, we just want to bake cookies and crochet and wear a lot of black. Like, yeah, that's it. Like, so it's one of those things where it's just like people fearmonger about it, but it's just actually not that scary. But anyway, all of this grew and grew and grew and grew and grew until congressional hearings over rock music and the potential censorship of rock music were held on, I have the date. Where is the date? September the 19th of 1985. So Congress had a 5-hour circus of a hearing with cameras and everything about whether or not they should label, they wanted like a rating system for music, like movies have, which doesn't sound so bad on its front, but then you start realizing that like the biggest distributor of music back then, because, you know, it was all still physical music, was Walmart, and Walmart felt immense pressure as like a family-friendly brand to not have carry anything that had explicit content in it. So this led to like further censorship of like songs being cut from albums, album like cover art being changed, and like all words being changed because they were afraid of getting like the parental advisory label. But to go back to the hearings themselves, there was a group made up of primarily wives of congressmen. Congressmen's wives were heading up this group called the Parents Music Resource Center. And they were worried about the morality of rock music. Because freedom of speech doesn't matter if it's not my freedom of speech.
Yeah, people like to throw around freedom of speech when they want to throw their conservative stuff on us, but
These were not just Republicans, too. These were Republicans and Democrats. Al Gore's wife was the main figurehead of this whole thing.
So they come together for this?
Yeah, this is what they unite on.
Rude.
Representative Fitz Hollings called rock music, quote, outrageous filth, saying that if he could find some constitutional way to ban it, he would. So just remember, guys, the Constitution is the only thing sometimes standing between, like, us and, like, not having any freedom. Because there's people that are generally like, if it wasn't for the fact that I can't legally do this, I would take away those people's rights in an instant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which that's totally not a problem nowadays.
No, we've totally fixed that. Closed that loophole. Oiled that squeaky wheel. That's us.
Oh no, there's an oil spill in the Gulf. Oh no. Anyway.
Side note that has nothing to do with this. I was talking to my dad last night about Dawn dish soap and how whatever PR company came up with the "we save the baby ducks and otters from the oil spills." What an opportunistic gold mine for Dawn, because they still put the baby ducks on their bottles.
Yes, and I still see the commercials with like the "Can you take me by the hand?" Yes. And it's the little dogs are like where. That's not how a duck sounds.
Nothing like a corporation capitalizing on corporate greed, killing the planet, to then be like, buy Dawn dish soap,
which helps clean things, but might not help the planet in the long run.
No, but the baby ducks are nice and oil free.
Yay! Oh, side note: Dawn dish soap is really good with like ointment stains. That's all I'm going to say on that.
It's good for making fake blood. If you put a little bit of it in your fake blood, movie makers, it's easier to clean it off of stuff when it inevitably gets on the walls and the floor and the handles of the cupboard. Not that that's ever happened to me. It has.
Now I just want to get poured with fake blood at some point in a independent film or one that follows the interim agreements for SAG.
Look, Halloween's coming up. Like, everybody who's got fake blood going on with their costumes, just put a little dish soap. You know, it doesn't have to be Dawn. We're not sponsored by Dawn. They probably hate us now for what we said about the baby ducks, but, you know.
Please sponsor us, Dawn. We'd be happy to make a nice commercial.
Or Dawn's competitors.
Yeah,
whoever gets to us first.
Exactly. Our emails are open.
We have no loyalty to anybody in the soap industry.
until you ask us to have loyalty to you.
Slides us a 20. We now have loyalty to somebody in the soap industry.
So someone has a clear American. We have loyalty now.
Yo, we got a letter from the Nielsen Foundation, like, you know, like the rating system. I didn't know that they still did like old school Nielsen ratings, like for like what people are watching, like the Nielsen ratings show that this show is up and this one is down. We got a letter saying like our house would be perfect to be a Nielsen house. Oh. And here's a we've enclosed a cash gift to make things worth it for you. It was $1. And then if we decided to complete the Nielsen ratings survey, we got $20.
Wow. A massive corporation that's been around for years giving you $20.
Thank you so much. I'm rushing out to become a Nielsen family member right now. Anyway, that's not really to do with what we're talking about. But
Satanic Panic.
Satanic Panic. Where was I?
Congressional hearing.
Okay, so the Parents Music Resource Center, which was headed up by Tippi Gore, Al Gore's wife, and other congressmen's wives, they wanted a rating system for music because they were wives of Washington politicians. They were able to kind of pull some strings and get a whole congressional hearing. It was like the most Karen move you've ever seen.
Of all the things.
Oh, some of the quotes, we'll get into it, but it's just so funny trying to, they're like, I can't, the pearl clutching over just like rock, classic rock is so funny. And it's preserved on the internet, so you can watch it anytime. If it's still, assuming it's still up when we post this, I'll link it. But so they get up there, they talk about how like our kids shouldn't be listening to this music. So instead of parenting them and deciding what they should be listening to, as parents, we're just going to try to make it so no one's kids get to hear this music.
Because that's how that works.
So a bunch of musicians in opposition, they got up and they testified about, the harmful, slippery slope that is censorship in art, including John Denver. He gave a really good testimony. The highlight testimony that everybody really remembers is Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. Now, disclaimer: Dee Snider. This is not an endorsement of Dee Snider. He had some transphobic things to say on Twitter just a couple months ago, but his testimony is, you can't really talk about this without talking about his testimony, because it was very effective. So we have to go into that. So just putting that out there. But Dee Snider was invited by Congress because outwardly he looked like somebody that would be an easy target. He had like the big frizzy blonde hair and all the makeup going on. And he chose, instead of showing up in a suit, to show up in like full like 80s rock star attire, right? Like he had like the cutoff, like the jeans and the cutoff t-shirt and the vest and the makeup and the whole thing. And he even talks about, in an interview, he like had like his speech written on this like crumpled up, like ratty looking piece of paper that he like pulled out of his back pocket and smoothed out, like just for the benefit of making Al Gore pretty much think that it was going to be an easy time, and then continued to like hand them their ass by being like, well, you're trying to censor people and you're trying to do this and it's wrong. And so it's part of the most memorable things. Like, this is already a circus. Like, people are, like, national attention is happening. Like, all the major news outlets are airing this hearing. And in walks Dee Snider, looking like, if you, here, Spencer will have to put in a picture. Where's a picture of Dee Snider from the 80s? I just want to get a visual. Oh, here's a picture of him at the congressional hearing. There he is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's got the whole thing going on. He looks very 80s.
That is such 80s hair.
So 80s. 80s rock star vibe. That's what he was going for. And it was a tactical strategy. That kind of paid off because he kind of stun locked a bunch of these people. He was also there were just several moments where he would say something and you just hear the whole room of everybody, reporters and everything, just laughing. He told Al Gore to his face that his wife had a dirty mind. To backtrack, his wife, Tippy, got up as like one of the lead figureheads of the group that was driving this whole thing, the PMRC. And she kind of like started listing out complaints that she had with certain songs that she wanted to be censored. One was she was upset because she, of her own volition and without listening to it, bought Purple Rain to play for their 3 young daughters. Purple Rain, great album by Prince. Album that was the soundtrack to an R-rated movie. And without listening to it at all, she was just like, yeah, this is probably good for my kids, and then played it for her kids and was mad that they heard things that they were too young to be hearing. And that's not her fault. No, that's Prince's fault. That's not my fault that I sight unseen played a record for my kids and then was mad.
Well, you don't judge a book by its cover.
Specifically, she had a problem with the song Darling Nikki because it referenced a girl masturbating. I know, right?
Oh my goodness.
What filth. But anyway, she also had a problem with the song Under the Knife by Twisted Sister, because she thought it was about sadomasochism and bondage.
I hear Under the Knife and I think of like plastic surgery.
So the fun thing is, it was written for, and Dee Snider gets up and he testifies in front of Congress that song was actually written for their guitarist, who at the time of writing the song was about to go in for surgery to get his polyps removed from his throat.
Oh, okay.
That's what the song is about. And he basically looked at Al Gore and he was like, your wife went in looking for something that she found in the lyrics. So basically, like, everybody starts laughing because he just insinuated that, like, his wife is, like, the one with, like, the dirty mind. Like, you know.
She really likes the music, but she doesn't like the fact she likes the music, so she wants it taken away.
Exactly. You know what Al Gore's great response to this was? He went, yeah, anyway, and then kept going to a different course of action.
Gosh.
So that was a pretty, like, famous moment. They also were upset with the We're Not Gonna Take It music video. Have you ever seen it?
I have not.
It's very cartoonish. Like, it's like people being, like, blown out of windows onto the front lawn because, like, the amp is being played so loud. And it literally, like, he testified that they were mad that it was so violent that our kids can't see it. You can't play that on TV. You can't play that on TV. And he's like, this was literally based off of cartoons, like Looney Tunes. Like, apparently Dee Snider collected cartoons, and he picked out a bunch of, like, Looney Tunes cartoons that he liked and based it off of that. So he's like, it's literally cartoon violence. Like, it's not at all, like, there's no, like, bloody, gory, like, it's literally just, like, silly, campy, oh, he fell out of a window because the amp was too loud, like, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He also called out Tippi Gore for lying because she said that she saw a t-shirt that was being sold by Twisted Sister that showed a naked woman in handcuffs. No such t-shirt existed ever. Like, that t-shirt did not exist. And he was like, if you could produce the t-shirt, we've literally never sold that t-shirt. And he even went on to, like, rant about how he's against, like, sexism and, like, how the whole band, like, fights for sexism in their work and in their private life. And then she basically was like, oh, what I meant was, actually, I saw a Twisted Sister shirt, and then I saw another nondescript shirt with the naked woman in handcuffs. And everybody was like, what? That's not what you said.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Oh, apparently when you're married to somebody in Congress, you can get away with lying at a congressional hearing under oath.
Yay, that's so great. That's what we should all do. Just marry someone in power so we can do whatever we want. Like lie on Twisted Sisters.
So Tippi Gore was lying to Congress and then got away with it. And then, but she was called out for it. Also they, I don't know if it was Al Gore or somebody else in Congress who, basically questioned Dee Snider's parenting because he at the time had one small son. It basically implied that he was a bad, like, judge of what his kid should listen to. A wild, disrespectful thing to say. And he very poignantly decided to give them 3 very clear steps to figuring out if something is inappropriate or not. And the steps included looking at the fucking title, like the cover. Here, I'm just gonna pull up I have the clip. This one I do have. It's the clip of him talking about it. These are Dee Snider's guidelines for parents on how to tell if a song is appropriate for your child or not.
Well, quite simply, as a parent myself and as a rock fan, I know that when I see an album cover with a severed goat's head in the middle of a pentagram between a woman's legs, that it's not the kind of album I want my son to be listening to.
Right.
So yeah, that was his like, oh yeah, I'm a bad parent. Where's your common sense?
Yeah, it's so great when people judge your parenting based on nothing, and it's just like.
And again, like, for what it's worth, like, Dee Snider and his wife have been married for, like, over 40 years. They have 4 kids who are all adults and, by all accounts, lovely people from all that I could gather. Like, it's not even, like, a commentary on Dee Snider specifically. It's just a commentary on how conservatives want you to think that their way of, like, family is the only, like, correct way. Because nobody watched The Addams Family, apparently.
Oh, yeah, and that's supposed to be like a parody of...
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like the exact opposite, and people are supposed to say, oh, that's weird, but it's like you have a man who loves his wife dearly, a strong, independent woman, and then 2 kids that, you know, that they are like, oh, you have things you like, go do that if you want, as long as you're not hurting people.
That's why my biggest complaint with, like, the Wednesday show is that, like, she's at odds with her parents, because, like, the whole point of The Addams Family is that they're a really like quote unquote weird family, but they're a very functional, like healthy family. And that was always like a commentary on like the nuclear family and how like it's bullshit to think that there's only one type of family.
Yeah, I found that so weird too. Like I was watching and it just kept taking me out. I'm like, this isn't the Addams Family.
It feels like they took like a generic teen show idea and just kind of reskinned it with the Addams Family. I don't know that that's what they did, but that's how it feels to me at times. There were a lot of good parts about it. But we don't technically support that because we're currently on strike. So, you know, we're not, we don't want to promote strike work. So I didn't really, I didn't like it. No, it's my fault. I was just like, I didn't like it. It's not endorsement.
Spencer cut all that out except for the Addams Family and it being a parody of
or
the
just put a
family.
big pay your writers Netflix banner over this as we talk about it. But anyway, yeah, like, you know, that was the whole point. And it's always like a big "Are the Straights okay?" meme to me when they're like, okay, we got to make a TV show about a family that is counter to all nuclear families. What's the first thing we do? The husband and wife still love each other.
Yeah, and
and they actually like their kids and want to spend time with them.
What a crazy notion.
Yeah, right. They support their children in their endeavors.
Yep. Are the heteros okay?
The straights are not okay.
Are they ever?
No.
Dang it.
He also was asked because Dee Snider, I guess, identifies as Christian, and this was, of course, also dragged into question because how can a rock star also be a Christian? It's scientifically impossible. He was called out when he was told that when he said he was a Christian. One of the members brought up, I think it was Al Gore, but again, I don't remember. It could have been somebody else. I wrote in my notes, Reliant K has entered the chat because Reliant K has always been a Christian rock band that's actually like, from what I've seen of them, very progressive to this day in their beliefs. Like they're very like LGBTQ affirming, and the Christians are all like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Have you not been listening to our music the entire time?
Have you not read the Bible?"
Right? Because it's Christian music, but they also would like, you know, protest like toxic Christianity in their music. So they're like, "Do you think we wouldn't be?" Like they had a queer opening act who's actually a really talented musician from TikTok, and people were pissed at them and they were like, "Stay mad, losers," and they just kept doing what they were doing.
Here, buy our records and then burn them.
Yeah, please.
That'll show us, you guys.
But Dee Snider said he was a Christian, and they were like, well, what's the name of they thought they were like having a gotcha moment with this. They were like, well, what's the name of your fan club? Because this was back in the days of like official fan clubs. Like, what's the name of your fan club? And he said, our fan club is called the SMF Friends of Twisted Sister. And they're like, and what does that stand for? And he proudly looked, I think, Al Gore in the eye and said, it stands for the Sick Motherfucking Friends of Twisted Sister. And Al Gore goes, is that also a Christian group? And he goes, I've never experienced Christianity or profanity having anything to do with Christianity. And then they moved on. It was pretty funny.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah. That was a very funny moment. So the outcome of this hearing was that we got the parental advisory sticker on music. That's where that comes from. Before 1985, they didn't have that. In fact, I think they ruled on it, but it didn't actually start coming out into the late 80s or early 90s. And like, it's not done anything because like, artists have gone on to say that, like, I remember in the 80s, I'm not that I remember from the 80s, I remember seeing this in my research, that I think it was Sebastian Bach from Skid Row, I did put it in my notes, said that they always hoped that they would get the parental advisory sticker because albums that have it sell better. And that's typically true to this day. So by them trying to, like, suppress, like, explicit media, didn't work. People were just like, ooh, protest the man, buy the parental advisory sticker. And yeah, so it didn't really do anything, but that's what we got. We got the parental advisory sticker, And Eric Nunzum, author of the book Parental Advisory Music Censorship in America, pointed out that this was quickly weaponized against artists, since at the time the biggest seller of music was Walmart. We talked about that, like, they were like, oh, we can't sell that. We're a family business. So this led to like censored versions of albums, but in the long run, it still paid off for them. And the record companies that caved in to all of the pressure to have like the counterculture music suppressed are pretty much obsolete now, because we're all in a streaming world anyway. But it is kind of funny to look back on. But it's like something that I thought was funny, and I did not know this until I was doing research for this script, and I actually found this last night. The censorship label is not all that they wanted, right? They got the censorship label, but they wanted a full rating system.
Oh, yeah.
The rating system is really funny. It would have different like letters to tell you like what kind of explicit music was on the album. X for sexually explicit music, V for violence, D and A for drugs and alcohol. None of that is really strange considering that they wanted a rating system. But my personal favorite part of the rating system was O. O for the occult. They wanted to straight up be like, this music is of the occult. Don't buy it. And it's just like, ma'am, this is a Wendy's.
Ma'am, this is a Walmart.
Ma'am, this is a Walmart where we sell whatever sells.
I'm just imagining Tippy and friends going in and being like, where's the O? Which one has it? This one has the O. We must buy it and destroy it.
No, I think Tippy's like jamming out to Prince.
Party like it's night. Oh gosh, I wonder what Tippy would have to say when she hears Locked Out of Heaven by Bruno Mars and Freak by Nicki Minaj playing on the radio. I disliked Locked Out of Heaven so much because they never censored that one part about what brought them to paradise. And I would be lifeguarding at a pool we would have the radio on.
Oh no.
And other lifeguards would like go over and turn the station, but I would just sit there with like my head down, just like, and they let that on. But I would still, I wouldn't go to Congress and be like, I don't like this. It doesn't follow my standards.
Yeah.
That's how Tippy
that's not
sounds.
how free speech works.
Yeah, free speech, Tippy and friends. Sorry, it's not just you, it's them too.
Well, I've talked about this before, but I occasionally get people coming into my comment section of my channel that is not geared for children. I do not make children's content, and being like, you're swearing. What if my child heard this? I'm like, then don't show my video to your kid. Like, please.
Yeah, I put the not made for kids. I click that button. What do you want
every
from me?
single time. And every time we have like a teenager even show up in our chat, we try to remind people to be mindful because we have younger friends in chat. We do what we can, but at the end of the day, we're not making stuff for kids, and adults are allowed to make content for other adults that like we say the swear words. Like, it's just funny when it's just like, you're responsible for what my kid sees, and I'm like, no. No, I'm not.
Unless you want to employ me to make videos that your kids can see, and this is my rate, and if you do that, then help me.
If I have like a side channel where I start like a Mrs. Doubtfire-esque TV show for kids, then it'll be a kids show. But that's not what we're doing here.
We're making content for adult. We're talking about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I'm just gonna keep bringing that up because
it's so funny.
We see what Tigger and Owl look like, and we don't know what Rabbit's gonna be doing.
Owl genuinely looks scared. Owl genuinely scares me. I can laugh at the other ones. Owl is like Lovecraftian horror.
Oh gosh, I'm just imagining it's like, oh, the violence and gore with Tigger is bad, but Owl's the worst. That's kind of what I'm imagining.
I don't trust Owl.
Yeah,
that's a shady bitch right there.
Yeah, like with Piglet, Pooh, and Tigger, you're like, oh, you know what they're gonna do, but Owl, you're just like, oh, that's a sneaky mother tucker.
Yeah. But Owl seems calculated.
Yeah, and it's like he's the owl, he's the wise one, so he's probably the mastermind of everything. And I wonder, I'm just imagining him and handsome Christopher Robin playing like mental chess to try to, and they're like, oh, he's an idiot. Did you see him in the first film? He caved immediately. And it took the one character we had with the backstory saving him to save him, but she's gone. So what's he going to do? And Christopher Robin's like, mallet. I don't know.
If you worked on that movie, contact us. You can do an interview with us.
We won't be like CNN and be like, you're gross and disgusting. What the heck is this? Because I remember on CNN, I know it's not a great movie, but like to go into their face and like jokingly like make fun of them the whole time.
No. Like, I have my opinions about the movie, but like, I'm never going to look at somebody who worked on a project and be like, ew, what were you thinking? It's like, it's a job, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, they worked really hard and just, you know, I was just like, oh, because they were just like not mincing words. They were saying what they were saying when they weren't being interviewed. And
I'm of the impression that we're all kind of on the same page, that it's pretty silly. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's not like they don't know. There's no way they're like, no, this is prestigious art that we're making. But yeah, we'll be chill with you guys. We'll be nice. We just want to hear about your experience. Genuinely. I watched some of those scenes and I'm like, I wonder how that happened. I wonder how that went down.
Yeah, I'm like, what were the practical effects? Tell me about all that, or like the practical effects.
Oh, I love a good practical effect.
Because from what I understand, there was some good practical effects.
There were a couple of decent practical stunts and things where I was like, huh. This is a very micro budget movie. They pulled that off. Good for them. Like,
yeah, because or it's like when you have your good slashers, you either had to have a memorable villain, a memorable final person, or a memorable unaliving. And I think the Blood and Honey kind of has memorable like unaliving.
They're very jarring. You see them when you close your eyes a little bit.
So it's like, at least they have that going for them. So hopefully the world will be fleshed out a little bit more in the second one. And, you know, if people are watching this, like, can't you talk about anything else? No, we can't.
We can't forget. Literally the day after I was like, it's finished, I put out the video, they announced the second one.
I remember,
or at least I became aware of the second one. They might have already announced it previously to that, but...
Yeah, Tigger looks really cool, though, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, or the video I was watching, it's like, why isn't he orange? It's like, well, the one that went into the public domain is more of like a lighter yellow color.
Yeah, because it's based on, it's from the original book. Like, the designs that we know and associate with Pooh Bear are all Disney.
I really just want to see videos on what people think Owl and Rabbit's roles are going to be.
We might have to do a whole podcast episode. I might see if there's any like behind the scenes info that I can find.
Can we follow the directors on Instagram and then maybe like tag them in a clip or two and be like, oh no, I accidentally tagged them. I hope they don't see this. And then it's like they're in our DMs like, hello. And we're like, oh.
We can reach out for comment. They probably won't respond to us, but we could always reach out. Worst they could say is no or block us.
Oh.
But that's okay.
Oh no. But yeah.
So getting back to Satanic Panic. It's really funny to me because I wrote in my notes that the conservatives were kind of building their own boogeyman, like Build-A-Bear, build your own boogeyman, because they're saying that there's satanic stuff in rock music. So then the rock stars start putting allusions to Satan in their imagery and in their lyrics to mess with them because it's funny. Because it's funny that you would be like outraged by a song, right? Instead of just being like, I don't like that song, and then listen to a different song. So it's like they Streisanded affected themselves into having like all this satanic imagery in rock music. You know about Streisand effect, right?
No.
So Barbara Streisand didn't want pictures of her house on the internet, and because she, a picture of her house got posted on the internet, and everybody would have just not cared, but she made a big deal about it, so people started reposting it everywhere. And to this day, when you look it up, the whole Streisand effect thing, the first thing that you see from Wikipedia is a picture of the house. So it's like you made a big deal about something that wasn't a big deal, but then you kind of spoke it into being you spoke about it, so other people are now talking about it, and what would have been just like a nothing issue is now a huge issue.
Oh gosh, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, basically that's what was happening with rock music. And then Vox, in their video, in their documentary about it, points out that many songs were written pushing back against censorship directly, pushing back against the PMRC directly. PMRC. I said that right. Yeah, I said that. The PMRC. I said it right. The group, the parental group that was behind the whole thing. Specifically, the song, they listed the song Mother by group Danzig is directly a call out to like Tippy and the people that, you know, they like, of course they were going to write music about this happening. But I think it's funny when you hear, like, I think it's interesting to learn the history of songs. And then Frank Zappa, rock star Frank Zappa, made his own warning label. It was yellow. And it read, quote, "This album contains material that a truly free society would never fear nor suppress." And was selling, and they sold these as like merch, I think. They put it on everything.
That's smart.
And of course, bands started backmasking a ton of songs to mess with the pastors that were like, they're backmasking music. And yeah, so basically that was what happened in the 80s and early 90s. And then, you know, just fast forwarding to today, like I said at the top of this, like people still say Billie Eilish has like sold her soul to Satan. People still say that Doja Cat, whatever you think about her, she didn't sell her soul to Satan. She's not a Satanist. Like, people say this about people to this day all the time, and it's weird.
And it's just like, really, for like a music career, come on, people. Or to think that someone would sell their souls to the devil for like a popular song.
Yeah, and like some people like believe in like this whole like, it's very like Alex Jones conspiracy theory type, right? Where it's just like all of Hollywood's out to get you and your kids. Like they're putting stuff in the water to turn the frogs gay.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's that, you know, wasn't it Tucker Carlson who was saying that he was afraid people were going to start, that the government was going to put Prozac in the water to like make people more submissive, and everybody was like, okay, but when though? Can we get some of that Prozac water?
People are like, wait, this really expensive or I assume it's like expensive.
I have insurance, so I'm lucky, but it can be very expensive without insurance. We need better insurance. We need government provided insurance in this country.
Not them spending their resources on one of their spouses having a temper tantrum over a bunch of songs that they clearly did not take the time to look into to see if it was appropriate for their children. But, you know, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I've been on Prozac since I was 15, and I'm still very concerned about the state. I'm still very anxious about the state of the world, so that plan has a lot of holes in it, Tucker Carlson.
Wait, I could get free Prozac in the water? Are you kidding?
Sign me up.
Isn't he the one where Eminem, or he was trying to get, because Eminem had the purple M&M, and they're like, oh, you're right. We're getting rid of our mascots.
The mascots are back now.
Yeah, they've been back. And someone was like, and Maya Rudolph was in a commercial where it's like, they now taste like shellfish, and they made this really fun. And it's like, no, we were never leaving. And they were, or someone was like, oh, the new Tucker Carlson M&M, it's all white and bland.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's just like, how do you set yourself up to be memed so hard? My guy went on his own show, which he got canceled.
I saw that, and people were
so
like,
fun.
oh, when Fox is canceling you.
Yeah, because he cost them like millions of dollars by like saying baselessly that the election was fraudulent. And like all of this, or what he said, hang on, I'm double checking myself, Spencer, I'm sorry. Tucker Carlson fired. He said something after discovering he did a lot of things wrong, but basically he cost them a lot of money in a lawsuit by saying baseless claims. That's the short version of the story. And it's really nice. Like, Andrew Tate got arrested and then Tucker Carlson got fired in the same week, and it was a good week.
Oh gosh, and the reason why is because when Andrew Tate was making his video, they saw like the pizza box and knew like like locally where that pizza came from and was able to find him. And I believe he was making a video in response to Greta Thunberg.
I can never say her name correctly, and I know I've said it wrong. I think it's Thunberg. He started a beef with her.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
And then he got caught. And yeah, shout out to Greta, environmental activist.
Yeah, I saw my favorite. Greta's amazing. But Greta, someone tweeted out, "Wow, I gotta hand it to Greta because it's been a while since I've heard about teenagers taking down a corporate, greedy businessman who's corrupt and sending him to prison without a talking dog being involved."
Oh my god!
It's been a while since that happened. It's just like, that's funny.
That it was just so good.
He would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for that meddling teenager.
Yeah. Oh gosh, but yeah, that was I remember the internet, or just parts of the internet, or just seeing that and not really knowing anything about it. I just know he is not a good person, like, at all. And and he went hiding and he got caught.
No, that might have to be, maybe that'll be a podcast episode if we continue the strike and can't talk about any movies. YouTube stuff. There's some interesting stuff that's been going down on YouTube. Ooh, God.
I've done that for like the last 2 podcasts in a row. But I don't want to. I feel like I shouldn't put that stress on you because you're like, no, you don't understand.
No. It's not that talking about Colleen would be stressful. It's just that to this day, the story is still developing. It is so much worse than we had even initially thought. And that's saying something because it was pretty bad from the start.
I mean, there's still stuff going on after you put out that video.
Yeah. Her husband came out and did an exclusive interview with Swoop and accused him of being an abusive spouse. And it's like really bad, and like accused her of like all this other stuff that we hadn't heard of before, and like making false claims. It's a whole thing. It's a whole entire thing.
Oh god. Oh, I just remember this one thing that just came out where oh gosh, I can't remember who it was, but I think it is. This could be cut out, but I think it was Danny.
You have to keep this in, Spencer.
Yeah, but it was Danny Masterson's wife.
Okay.
Or
cut this out, Spencer. This would be a different conversation for a different time.
We can cut this out.
Ew. Anyway.
Gross. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. To this day, we still have people being like, "It's all a conspiracy. It's the Illuminati." Like. And it's in reality, it really just comes from people, I think, wanting to have control over certain groups of people and be like, this is what you can't listen to, right? It's a lot of parents, and I'm sure some parents genuinely think they're protecting their kids, and depending on how young your kids are, they shouldn't be listening to explicit music, but like parents are constantly worried about what the kids are listening to. And it's like every generation has this. Like, I believe it was Vox that pointed out that like the same guys that were out here in the 80s saying that rock music and Skid Row and all this are violent and are evil and are satanic, they were listening to Elvis, who at the time was also being called like to counterculture. Of course, again, Elvis stole all of his music, but you know, he was like the face of rock and roll, the king. So he was also being like, they got the same shit from their parents and then they did it to their kids. And it's like the cycle continues and on and on and on and on and on.
We need to break that cycle. And it's like, well, look, it didn't work for you. It didn't work for your parent, your grandparents. And it's just like, oh, maybe try something different. And the more you try to suppress something, the more they're just gonna be like, well, I'm just gonna go out into the world and find it on my own. And it might end up not being done in the best way. And it might end up making things worse. But, you know.
Also, it's important to note that censorship in art is a very tricky, potentially dangerous thing, because art often is used to call out abuses of power. Obviously there's something to be said for like having conversations about like pieces of media that have issues and like are offensive, and that's a whole different topic. That's completely different from just like being like, that music sounds satanic, so I don't want it. Like that's a very dangerous thing when we let conservative politicians control what's being artistically made.
Yeah, because there are some countries out there where a lot of their stuff is like...
Yeah. And freedom of... Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, good. Yeah, but it's basically just lack of freedom, or they just they control everything that the people of that country see, and those people are miserable. And
places like you know how many videos I get where it's just like, your video has been blocked in Russia, and I'm just like,
oh no.
I'm always just confused because I feel like all of my videos would be blocked in Russia. It's usually just because of copyright distribution reasons, I think. But every time I see it, it reminds me that some of my videos are not blocked in Russia. Hi, Russia. We know not all of you are.
Not all. Yeah,
Putin. We know.
We're educated, and we are able to be like, not all, but if you are involved in the bad stuff, then shame on you. But if you're not everyone. Yeah. And also it comes down to education too, because it's like, if you would just like listen or read or listen to the music or read the lyrics or be like, oh, this, and because then it's just, you look at the surface, create your own interpretation, and it's just like...
And also, like, it's so interesting because the same people that want to, like, complain about, like, woke cancel culture ruining everything want to, like, take books away from kids that are just going to educate them. So it's a total double standard. People want, like, their free speech, but then they don't want other people to have free speech. And it's like, we need to have conversations about, like, having conversations about, like, problematic media and making things safer for people is a completely different situation and needs to be addressed. But then the same people who are like, no, we can't do that because my free speech, are like, but I want to take away, like, legitimate free speech from other people. And it's like, that's what censorship does. We get to this place where teachers are getting in trouble because they played Strange World for their class.
And Florida, my gosh.
And she got permission too. And then retroactively a parent was like, no, I'm not okay with it. Because God forbid there's a gay character in a movie that my kid watches.
Yeah, there are so many... there were a few shows that I could think of that were there was one show I'm thinking about that got canceled because of because two rock people who identified as the same or were like coded as the same gender had a wedding. The show was canceled, and it's just like...
Do you ever watch Parks and Rec?
Yes.
You know the gay penguin wedding?
Yes.
That's all it makes me think of.
Oh my God. Yeah, and it's just like...
NBC, pay your writers, pay your staff.
Pay the people, and stop trying to cancel shows that are in conservative. Stop trying to cancel shows you don't agree with, because it shows things that are like really happening. The gay people are real and they're not going anywhere.
They are?
Yeah. I know, it's shocking.
Crazy.
And yeah, and just some of the things people say, and the transphobia that people are, and it's like...
the transphobia is so...
And it's like, trans people are, back in my day, we didn't have and it's like, no, they had to be in the closet and had to be suppressed, and you try to sweep them out of the way. And then when they were having issues, you swept that under the rug and weren't giving them the light of the day. And then I remember there is a show called Survive the Raft, and on the show there is a trans man, and on Discovery they posted a clip of him being like, I'm trans, and his story. Yeah. And people are like, oh, they're shoving it down our throats, and I'm like,
for existing. Exactly.
And people are like, oh, I used to like the show, but not anymore. And I'm like, this was literally the first episode. where he said this, and he's just, shout out to Elliot, you're amazing, but like, it's just, oh, they're shoving it down our throats. It's like, oh, the propaganda. And it's like, he's literally just telling his story. Like, there are so many reality shows where we hear people telling their stories about, oh, I'm just a beautiful person who just can't find love because I'm beautiful and everyone's so shallow.
Yeah, and all of that boils down to the same fear, whether it be Satanic Panic rock music of the 80s, or like the Illuminati scare of the 2010s, or like, all of this comes down to censorship coming out of fear mongering over like a moral panic that doesn't exist. And it's all for people that just want to retain control because, God forbid, people kind of question the way the system has always worked and seek the betterment of like human rights for people. And some people just genuinely will fight against that. So it's like, it's Satanic Panic is a funny story because it's funny to watch all these people like pearl clutch about like I don't know, Fleetwood Mac. I don't know if that was actually referenced, but like basically I'm sure somebody somewhere had something to say about Fleetwood Mac being Satanists or something. But it's like it's funny to watch that, but then you're like, oh shit, we have that going now. It's less funny now, you know?
And watching the movies where there's like an oppressive government and there's the one person who's like, I'm fighting against it, and everyone roots for the person that's like, I'm fighting against it. But it's like it's like, you do realize that if you're saying this, you're on the side of the person you're rooting against in the film or in the book. Like, I want to say like in the book, I could talk about the book.
Yeah.
In the book, The Hunger Games, people don't like President Snow in the books, but there are people who are just like, yes, I will suppress these people and make sure that they don't rebel again and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, but the people don't see that if they look in the mirror, they should be seeing Coin, not Katniss kind of thing. And it's just like, that's why education is key. But then all those books are being swept under the rug because it's just like, it's control.
Yeah. So basically, what were you gonna say?
I'm not putting these into great. I'm not speaking really well. Luckily, you're able to put them into words that people understand. But in my mind, I'm just like, it makes sense in my mind.
Oh, everything is scrambled in my brain. I'm like, this is like my second one of these today. I'm like wired. I'm just like, I'm gonna go listen to all the rock music. Woo! Shotgun a Red Bull.
And I'm just imagining me, I'm like, oh yeah, rock music. And you're just like, Gabe, that's not rock music. And I'm just like, oh no. And everyone's like, this whole podcast is render moot because Gabe doesn't even know rock and roll music. And
well,
I'm
it's
like,
so funny because like, I mean, rock music, heavy metal is a different subgenre, but like with like heavy, like screamo metal, it's so funny to like listen to that and then be like, this is what everybody thought was too heavy in the 80s. And it's like, we're not going to take it. My Twisted Sister was literally considered like hard rock. And it's just like, it's rock, but I wouldn't consider it a specifically heavy song. But like they were known as like a heavy metal band at the time.
oh my God.
Yeah.
And you hear the heavy metal now and you're like, oh, and for some reason I think like heavy metal or rock and roll, and I think like screamo.
Yeah, my mom is also into heavy music, and we always joke that it's like, do you remember Monsters U?
I was thinking about that.
Disney pay your writers. This is not an endorsement for Disney. This is that one animated movie where the monster mom is just like, I'll be in here listening to my music, rolls up window.
I remember that. That was so funny.
I love the timing of it was so funny, but it's just like, yeah. So it's funny. And it's funny to watch the congressional hearings back because everybody was so obsessed with it. Like the whole country was watching as Dee Snider told Al Gore that his wife had a dirty mind.
Yes.
It was pretty great.
and also don't be transphobic.
Yeah, don't be transphobic.
In case
Two things could be true at once. Dee Snider could have given a good statement to Congress and also kind of be a piece of shit because of the whole transphobia thing, right?
Yeah.
You guys know. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, and
An hour and 23 minutes.
Cool.
Shorter than the last one.
Yeah, and Spencer has to cut out that one part.
Yeah, it'll be short. It'll be probably like an hour 10. Ask Spencer will let us know.
Yeah, but I think this has been you have created a very informative podcast, and we've been able to speak various points about it relating to like censorship and all that.
Wandering myriad of topics.
You
said there's nothing to talk about in a strike.
Oh gosh. Yeah, and again, if the strike keeps going, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
You guys they're all doing it to themselves.
Exactly. And I just want to bring up in Dragula, one of the things they say during judging is drag is art and art is subjective. We're not going to judge you based on how you look. We're going to judge you on how well you do the challenge put in front of you.
Is Dragula like its own thing? That's a show?
Yes.
That's
amazing.
Yeah.
I know it's a song, but yeah, it's basically RuPaul's Drag Race for alternative artists.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to see because it's very nice because it puts into perspective, because people are like, Drag Race, that's the only kind of drag, but it's like, no, there's this, if you expand and educate yourself, you can see there's this whole subgenre of looks and stuff, and they've had a variety of individuals there. They have had cis performers, trans performers. They've had several AFAB of signed female at birth drag queens, which I think in Drag Race, on Drag Race on the normal season, I don't think they've had there's only been 3 cis women, or there's been a trans man, but 3 cis women who identify as women, and none of them have been on the regular Drag Race, but on Dragula, like season 3, and so it's just like, gotta expand outwards, expand your mind, and all this satanic panic is coming from ignorance and not educating yourself on what's actually happening and all that fun stuff.
I don't know if you're aware, there's a drag queen she's a Christian, she's been dominating the Christian charts. She writes the funniest songs.
I think you told me about that.
Her name is Flamey Grant.
I think you told me about Flamey Grant.
Instead of Amy Grant, the Christian turned pop Christian crossover famous lady singer, Flamey Grant. And Flamey Grant is amazing. We love Flamey Grant.
Yeah, I'm sure Tippy Gore is clutching her pearls like, but they're singing Christian songs, but they're a drag queen.
Yeah, it's fully Christian. It's just Christian music, but they're like, a drag queen.
Yeah, it's so interesting to look back and be like, these are the individuals you're scared of. No offense, Hex Girls, you're amazing. But
the Hex Girls were at the tip of counterculture.
But it's just like, but looking back, it's just like.
But yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we got for you this week. So anyway.
Happy spooky season. We'll have another spooky episode, because I think we've got at this point in time when you're seeing this, we've still got a couple more weeks until Halloween. So I'll be on the hunt for more spooky episodes. Yeah. I want to talk about tropes used in Japanese and South Korean horror films.
Ooh,
I don't know if I can talk about the movie specifically, but I have some tropes and themes that I can be like, this, because on Dead Meat they talked about it, and I listened to their podcast. Shout out to James and Chelsea.
Nice.
But yeah.
But yeah, we'll leave you guys here. Thank you for being here. Where do we want to go?
In the 80s?
In the 80s, yeah. 1985.
Oh, gosh. I feel like there's a lot of fun things that some individuals are yelling at their phones. Like,
I think Back to the Future came out in 1985.
We can see the premiere.
The premiere of Back to the Future.
And not talk about it.
Never mind. We can't do that. What else happened? A lot of things happened in 85. We can go watch MTV. It actually has music.
We can see the music TV.
And music's still on MTV.
Yay. Like, comment, subscribe, nice things. Follow us on the YouTubes if you haven't already. I'm Gabriel Custic. Avery talks about stuff. Don't forget to write a review and give us 5 stars.
Thank you for watching or
Thank
listening.
you.
We'll see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Woo!
Woo.